For over a century, the automobile has been more than just a mode of transport in America. It's been a defining force in shaping the nation's identity. From the earliest days of the Model T rolling off the assembly lines, cars have represented innovation, independence, and the promise of a better life. The open road became a symbol of possibility, inviting generations to chase their dreams and explore the vast landscapes of the United States. It's a symbol of freedom, progress, and the American dream. For millions, the family car was more than just a vehicle. It was a ticket to adventure, a way to connect with loved ones, and a source of pride. Road trips became a rite of passage, and the car itself a cherished member of the family. From the highways that connect the nation to the assembly lines of Detroit, cars have shaped both culture and economy. The automobile industry fueled the growth of cities, created millions of jobs, and inspired countless innovations. It's woven into the fabric of American life, influencing everything from music and movies to the way communities are built. Ford, an icon of American manufacturing, has long stood at the heart of this story. The company's pioneering spirit and commitment to making cars accessible to all helped transform the nation. Ford's vehicles became household names, and its factories set the standard for industrial innovation. But in 2025, a seismic shift in trade policy, sparked by Donald Trump's return to the presidency, put this legacy to the test. Sweeping new tariffs on imported vehicles and auto parts were announced, sending shockwaves through the industry and raising urgent questions about the future of American manufacturing. New tariffs on imported vehicles and auto parts upended the global supply chains that companies like Ford depend on. Suddenly, the cost of building cars in America soared, and the delicate balance of international trade was thrown into chaos. Suppliers scrambled to adapt, and automakers faced tough choices about where and how to build their vehicles. Suddenly, Ford faced a crisis: protect its American identity or adapt to a new, uncertain economic reality. Executives weighed the risks, workers feared for their jobs, and communities that depended on the auto industry braced for impact. The choices made in boardrooms and on factory floors would determine not just the fate of a company, but the future of an American icon. The decisions made would ripple through its workforce, customers, and the entire auto industry. Every stakeholder, from the assembly line worker to the family shopping for their next car, would feel the effects. The stakes were high, and the world watched as Ford navigated this unprecedented challenge. This is the story of how the 2025 tariffs shook Ford and the future of American cars. It's a tale of resilience, reinvention, and the enduring spirit of a nation on wheels. A tariff is essentially a tax placed on goods that are brought into a country from abroad. When a government imposes a tariff, it's not just a simple fee. It's a strategic tool used to influence trade, protect local industries, and sometimes even send a political message to trading partners. The main idea behind tariffs is to make imported products more expensive for consumers, so that locally made goods become more attractive by comparison. This is supposed to encourage people to buy domestic products, which in turn supports local businesses and helps create jobs within the country. In 2025, the Trump administration made a bold move by imposing a sweeping 25% tariff on a range of imported goods, specifically targeting steel, aluminum, vehicles, and perhaps most significantly, auto parts. This was one of the most aggressive trade policies in recent history, and it sent shockwaves through the global automotive industry. The administration's stated goal was clear: force companies to manufacture more products in America, reduce reliance on foreign suppliers, and ultimately protect and create U.S. jobs, especially in the manufacturing sector, which has long been seen as the backbone of the American economy. But the reality of modern manufacturing is far more complex. Today's cars are intricate machines, assembled from thousands of parts sourced from all over the world. Even vehicles labeled as American-made often rely on components manufactured in dozens of different countries, making the global supply chain essential to the industry's efficiency and cost-effectiveness. For companies like Ford, these new tariffs didn't just make imported cars more expensive. They also drove up the cost of building cars right here in the U.S. That's because many of the parts needed to assemble vehicles domestically still come from overseas, and now every one of those parts was subject to the new tax. The policy, which was intended to help American workers and manufacturers, ended up threatening to disrupt the very industry it aimed to protect. Companies faced higher costs, uncertainty, and the risk of losing their competitive edge in a global market. The result was a fundamental challenge to decades of globalized auto manufacturing. The interconnected web of suppliers, factories, and logistics that had been built up over years was suddenly thrown into question, forcing companies to rethink their entire approach to building and selling cars. Ford and its rivals now faced a stark dilemma: either adapt quickly to the new reality by reshuffling supply chains and absorbing higher costs, or risk falling behind in an industry where innovation and efficiency are everything. The financial hit to Ford was swift and severe. In May 2025, Ford warned that tariffs would slash its annual earnings by $1.5 billion. The company suspended its financial guidance, signaling deep uncertainty. Ford's stock dropped, and CEO Jim Farley called the situation chaos for American business. To cope, Ford stockpiled parts from Mexico and Canada before tariffs took effect, a costly, temporary fix. Meanwhile, China retaliated with tariffs on US-made cars, forcing Ford to halt shipments of key models abroad. Ford was squeezed rising costs at home, shrinking markets overseas. The tariffs didn't just threaten profits, they threatened Ford's future. The company scrambled to survive in a world turned upside down by trade policy. In the face of mounting political backlash and growing public scrutiny, Ford knew it had to act decisively. The company responded with a bold and unapologetic advertising campaign, "From America, for America." This wasn't just a slogan. It was a rallying cry, a declaration of Ford's deep roots in American soil and its ongoing commitment to the nation's workers and communities. The message Ford sent was unmistakable. No other automaker assembles more vehicles in the United States or employs as many union workers as Ford does. The company showcased its bustling assembly lines, the diversity and dedication of its workforce, and the pride that comes from building American vehicles on American soil. The campaign was laser-focused on Washington, D.C., aiming to sway policymakers and remind them that Ford's identity is inseparable from America's own story. Ford lobbyists met with lawmakers, emphasizing the company's role as a pillar of the American economy and a major employer in communities across the country. Ford positioned itself as a true American icon, one that was being harmed, not helped, by the very tariffs meant to protect U.S. industry. The company wrapped itself in the flag, highlighting its legacy and the generations of American families who have depended on Ford for their livelihoods. Through powerful imagery and heartfelt stories, the ads reframed the entire debate. Supporting Ford wasn't just about buying a car. It was about supporting American workers, their families, and the communities that rely on manufacturing jobs. Ford's campaign exposed a striking paradox. Tariffs designed to shield American industry were, in reality, putting one of its most iconic companies at risk. Executives voiced their concerns, warning that these policies could have unintended consequences for American jobs and innovation. The company was fighting for more than just its brand. It was fighting for its very survival in a rapidly changing America. Ford's leadership and employees stood united, determined to weather the storm and continue their legacy of American manufacturing excellence. In a world where global supply chains and American roots are now inseparable, Ford found itself at a crossroads. Its future, and the future of American industry, hanging in the balance. Ford wasn't alone. Every automaker felt the shockwaves. GM slashed international inventories before the tariffs hit, bracing for chaos. Stellantis launched its own America's Freedom of Choice campaign, but had to admit its cars used imported parts. The industry's dirty secret: no car is purely American-made anymore. Suppliers like Autoliv warned they'd pass tariff costs to automakers who'd pass them to consumers. The result, a domino effect of rising prices and shrinking margins. Rivals became allies, lobbying Congress and warning that tariffs would disrupt jobs, raise costs, and hurt everyone. The industry united against a policy that threatened its very foundation. The real cost of tariffs hit factory floors and working families. Automakers warned that higher costs could mean production cuts, canceled investments, and layoffs. Union and non-union workers in Michigan, Ohio, and Kentucky faced growing anxiety. The entire supply chain, from big plants to small parts makers, was under pressure. Many small suppliers faced impossible choices: absorb losses, raise prices, or cut jobs. The ripple effect hit local economies as workers spent less and businesses suffered. The very workers tariffs were meant to protect now faced an uncertain future. The policy's unintended consequences threatened the stability of entire communities. For consumers, tariffs meant one thing: higher prices at the dealership. A 25% tariff on parts drove up costs for all automakers, foreign and domestic. Even before tariffs, new car prices were nearing $50,000. Now, they soared higher. The dream of a new car slipped further out of reach for many families. Used car prices rose too, as buyers looked for alternatives. No brand was immune. Every car, even American icons, relied on imported parts. Tariffs erased the competitive edge for U.S. automakers, making cars more expensive for everyone. Trade policy in Washington hit home in the form of bigger monthly payments. Economists called the 2025 auto tariffs a high-risk gamble with little upside. Decades-old supply chains couldn't be rebuilt overnight without massive disruption. The tariffs acted as a tax on U.S. production, threatening profits, jobs, and investment in future technologies. Think tanks warned of hundreds of thousands of potential job losses. Ford and Stellantis' ad campaigns were less about selling cars, more about lobbying for survival. Retaliatory tariffs from China and others sparked fears of a wider trade war. The cycle of escalation threatened industries far beyond autos, from agriculture to tech. The lesson: protectionist policies can backfire, harming the very people they aim to help. By mid-2025, the American auto industry faced a crossroads. Ford's $1.5 billion loss wasn't just a number, it meant less investment in jobs and innovation. Automakers had tough choices: absorb costs, raise prices, or overhaul supply chains at great expense. Workers faced job insecurity, consumers faced higher prices. The dream of revitalized U.S. manufacturing clashed with the reality of global economics. The future of Ford and the industry depended on adapting to this new world, or on a shift in Washington's approach. The 2025 tariffs became a cautionary tale about the complexities of global trade. The next chapter for American cars and workers remains unwritten.